Nuclear officials from the 20 biggest economies are meeting in Paris as atomic energy gets increasingly on the back burner for countries nervous of the crisis in Japan. Germany and Switzerland plan to close all their nuclear reactors. But Britain is committed to expanding its facilities, which, as Laura Emmett explains, is leading to security fears.
The Lake District, famous for its quaint villages and spectacular views. It's a hill walker's paradise, but one can't help wondering if people would be quite as happy to holiday here if they knew what was right next door. Here, right on the edge of the picturesque Lake District, is Sellafield nuclear plant. Improbably, it's home to the world's biggest plutonium stockpile, a waste product of civilian nuclear fuel. Plutonium's one of the deadliest substances known to man, poisonous and convertible into nuclear weapons. But nuclear scientists have a plan. Inside these buildings, they take the waste plutonium and recycle it into usable nuclear fuel called MOX. It sounds great in theory, but the reality is very different.
There is an existing MOX plant at Sellafield, but its output has been a tiny fraction of what it was supposed to do, and it cost an enormous amount of money. Cables leaked by WikiLeaks, so the US described it as a big industrial embarrassment and a white elephant.
The majority of the Sellafield plutonium stockpile is British, but managers were so confident it would work, they took plutonium from other countries, promising to send it back as fuel. A major customer was Japan, which now says it won't buy the MOX.
Fukushima has changed the landscape because there is now growing concern in Japan about the whole nuclear business, in particular the business in recycled fuel. And the purpose of the MOX plant at Sellafield was to make fuel that would be sent back to Japan using Japanese plutonium.
Even before Fukushima, the plutonium reprocessing plant at Sellafield was considered one of the biggest disasters in British industrial history, producing just 10% of its planned output at huge cost. But that hasn't stopped government plans for building yet another plant. It could cost $10 billion, much of it taxpayer money.
MOX is really about getting rid of plutonium. There's no other purpose for MOX at all. It's more expensive to produce, it's subsidy to the users to make it work, and it produces nuclear waste that is much more difficult to deal with.
For now, the stockpile's here to stay, posing a massive security threat.
One of the biggest fears since 9/11 is, of course, that stockpile in plutonium will be targeted in some way by terrorists, either by crashing aircraft onto the site or whatever. So there's enormous concern about it being used by terrorists in some shape or form. 5 kilograms of this material, and remember we have something approaching 100 tons of it. 5 kilograms of this material would make large parts of London uninhabitable for many, many years.
Sellafield has been affected by global events recently. In the wake of the killing of Osama bin Laden, 5 men were arrested taking photos here on suspicion of terrorist activities. They were eventually released without charge, but the incident highlighted the hazards of storing such a huge amount of deadly material. MOX sounds like a good way of getting rid of it, but following Fukushima, there's no market. Worryingly, that hasn't stopped government plans to pour billions into a second MOX plant. Laura Emmett, RT, Sellafield, Cumbria.